Ladies and gentlemen, I will now move on to the second part of the presentation, which will be conducted in English. I first covered inquiries. For inquiries received by my office, the PCPD, we received over 14,000 inquiries from the public last year. And this means that on average, we handled about 1,200 inquiries per month and around 60 to 70 inquiries per day. And of these inquiries on the collection and use of personal data, including, for example, Hong Kong identity card numbers and copies, accounted for about 28% of the total. And the other major categories included the handling of personal data in employment cases and also our complaint handling policy. So that is the position for inquiries. And in view of the rising trend of data fraud cases, we set up a personal data fraud prevention hotline in September last year to handle inquiries or complaints from members of the public in relation to suspected personal data fraud cases. And the hotline from September to December received 168 calls. And for the whole year, we received 707 inquiries from the public relating to personal data frauds. This represented an increase of 26% year on year. And I believe that it is a substantial increase and which deserve attention from us. And that is why for the coming year, for this year, we have plans to increase our promotion and publicity efforts in this area. Complaints. For complaints, you will see from this graph that the number of complaints which we received last year increased by about 15% when we compare the figure to that of last year. And I would say it is mainly attributable to an increase in the number of doxing cases handled by us. Apparently, because of the increased publicity and promotion efforts made by us after the implementation of the new anti-doxing regime. And this graph shows you the top 5 private sectors being complained against. And the ranking is in terms of the number of complaints lodged against the particular sector. You'll see that property management sector tops the list, followed by banking and finance, telecommunications, retails, and insurance. And apparently, for the property management sector, more complaints were filed against the sector because they handled a huge amount of personal data relating to residents and also visitors during the pandemic. And this included cases, for example, the collection and the use or the retention of personal data in mass distribution events. And they kept the data even after the event was over. And this, of course, also included the collection of personal data from visitors to the buildings, including workers who visited the building, and also delivery workmen who delivered all sorts of stuff to the buildings. Compliance checks. For compliance checks, in 2022, last year, we initiated 392 compliance checks, and this represented a 4% increase year on year. And for last year, we received 105 data breach notifications, with 41 from the public sector and 64 from the private sector. And you can see from the pie chart to the left of this slide that the incidents were caused by hacking and also loss of documents or portable devices. Actually, for these two together, they amounted for more than half of the total number of cases. And the other causes included inadvertent disclosure of personal data by fax or email, employee misconduct, or system misconfiguration. Handling of doxing cases. From the implementation of the amendment ordinance in 2021 to the end of last year, we handled a total of 2,128 doxing cases. And this included complaints lodged with my office and also cases discovered by us proactively through the online patrol. The nature of the cases reported to the PCPD. This pie chart shows you that a huge amount of cases related to monetary dispute. And this category accounted for 28% of the total. Similarly, family and relationship dispute accounted for more or less the same percentage, 27%. And for work dispute and political dispute, each of them accounted for 14% of the total number of cases. For this period, from October 2021, since the implementation of the amendment ordinance to the end of December last year, we initiated 114 criminal investigations. And we referred 32 cases which involved the commission of other crimes or the more serious doxing offenses to the police for further investigation. As to arrest operations, we mounted a total of 12 arrest operations. One in 2021, in December of that year, about 2 months after the implementation of the amendment ordinance, and 11 in 2022 last year. And actually, for the 11 arrest operations carried out last year, one was carried out in May as a joint operation with the police. And in the 12 arrest operations, a total of 12 suspects were arrested. And for the arrest cases, the 12 arrest cases, with late charges in 5 of the cases, with 2 defendants convicted up to the end of December. Actually, if I talk about up to this particular moment, 3 defendants were already convicted. And there was one sentencing case back in December last year, in which the defendant was sentenced to 8 months imprisonment. I would say we welcome the first sentencing case because the sentence signified the seriousness of the doxing offense. And for anyone who commits the offense, he or she will be liable to immediate custodial sentence. And I think this first sentencing case sends a strong signal to the community that doxing is a serious offense. And for the other prosecution cases, they are still undergoing the judicial process. So I will not make any further comments on that. Cessation notice. As you may recall, under the amendment ordinance, the Privacy Commissioner is empowered to issue cessation notice to anyone who is able to take down doxing message. And that is why for this period, up to the end of December, we issued a total of 1,500 cessation notices to 26 platforms. And we request the removal of doxing messages. And I'm very happy to inform you that the compliance rate is over 90%, notwithstanding that most cessation notices were issued to the operators of platforms operated overseas. I will now move on to the investigation report on the data breach incident in relation to the Hong Kong Institute of Bankers. The investigation arose from a data breach notification which we received from the Hong Kong Institute of Bankers, Hong Kong IB, informing us that 6 servers of the Hong Kong IB, which contain personal data, had been hacked by ransomware and was maliciously encrypted. and the personal data of over 13,000 members of Hong Kong IB and also 100,000 non-members of the Institute were affected. And apart from the individuals' names, the contact information, names of the employers, and also their positions, some individuals' identity card numbers and credit card numbers were also leaked. As a result of our investigation after following findings, I'm of the opinion that the incident was caused by Hong Kong IB's failure to patch a vulnerability in its system. And this is because of the lack of patch management procedures in the Institute, which allow the hacker to exploit the relevant vulnerability, get hold of the VPN's account names and also the passwords. And using these account names and passwords, the hacker intruded into the system and obtained the administration rights of the system, therefore by enabling the hacker to execute ransomware and succeeded in encrypting the entire servers. And we are talking about 6 servers in total. And the other cause of the incident was that Hong Kong IB, the Institute, did not enable the multi-factor authentication for the VPN to enhance system security. Because if it had enabled the multi-factor authentication, it would not be so easy for the hacker to get access to the system through obtaining the usernames and also the passwords. As a result, I concluded that the Hong Kong IB contravened Data Protection Principle 4 as regards the security of personal data, namely that it had failed to take practicable steps to protect the personal data involved from unauthorized or accidental access, processing, erasure, loss, or use. And I also find that there were serious deficiencies in 3 particular aspects: inadequacies in the management of data security risks, in particular, the lack of a patch management system and procedures, deficiencies in the information system management, and also prolonged implementation of the multi-factor authentication, which I have mentioned just now. So, so much for the investigation report.